How's it going, you guys? It's Scott with Everyday Home Repairs, and today I want to show you how to swap out a ceiling light. Now, this is a very approachable project for pretty much any homeowner, but I will walk you through each of the steps, even if you're not completely comfortable working with electrical. The light that we'll be swapping out to is an integrated LED light, so there's no bulbs in this. It's 11 inches in diameter and it has that softer warm light at 3000 Kelvin. So there is a full scale when you're dealing with LEDs, and this is going to be towards that soft light, which I really recommend for your living spaces or a hallway like this. Additionally, throughout the video, I will give you some tips that hopefully will reduce the chance that you're going to take 2 or 3 trips to the hardware store to get additional parts. There's a few things that can trip you up when doing these lights, and I'll point those out to hopefully make this a one-trip project for you. So let's jump into it. We'll start off this project by removing the old fixture. Just a few things to take into account. One, you're going to be working overhead, so it's always good to have a pair of safety glasses. And 2, most likely your ceiling has been painted over the years, so you could have paint actually on the fixture. And what you want to do is use a standard razor blade and score the interface between the housing and the ceiling all the way around the fixture. And this is just going to reduce the chances of when you pull that housing off that you're going to get the paint peeling off and then damaging your ceiling. And this brings us to the first tip that will hopefully make this a smooth project for you. And that is to take a look at your housing and measure the diameter. Now, this housing is a little less than 5 inches in diameter. And why you want to take that into account, because most likely underneath this housing, there is a different paint color and maybe damaged drywall. So your new housing, you're going to want to be bigger than your old housing, and that will reduce any type of touch-up work that you might have to do to your ceiling. For my instance, I'm switching from less than 5 inches in diameter to 11 inches in diameter. So this will easily cover any imperfections in the paint or the drywall underneath this housing. Removing the old light fixture is easy. Just back out or loosen up the 2 machine screws, rotate, and then that will release the housing. Now I'll double check with a non-contact voltage tester to make sure there's no hot wires inside the electrical box. Then I'll just undo this bracket, and to note, you can look down in the description to see the tools that I'm using and also the light that we'll install in this video. So once that bracket is out, and then I'll go ahead and just undo the 2 wire nuts so I can completely remove the housing. And now we'll take a closer look at the wiring inside this box. Taking a look at the wiring, there's a good chance yours is going to be different, but here is one example of what you might see. And this one actually has a flaw. So I have, on all corners of this box, I have Romex coming in. One is basically the power coming into the box. One is going out to a receptacle downstream. 2 lines are going out to 2 different switches. So this is a 3-way setup where you have 2 different switches that can control this one light. And then this is where you'll see here the red wires, and these black wires are what are called travelers. So you can look up a 3-way light schematic and you'll see what these travelers are, but basically what it is doing is tying together the 2 switches so that either one can control the light. Now the issue with this is, even though the white to white, neutral, and black to black hot look correct, they're actually not correct. If you look up in this wire nut, I have 2 white wires coming in, which are neutrals, and then a black one coming out. So this is actually a neutral line, or should be a neutral line. And this is actually the hot. So the light was wired backwards. Now that functions, the light still functions, but what it does is it does create a safety hazard. Let me show you. So what this means is, with this socket, the outside was hot and the inside was neutral. So that is a safety issue. Just by changing the light bulb out, you could get shocked with this fixture. So I'm going to switch those around and then also make sure all my grounds are tied in together. So now I'll remove the socket, and I will add a piece of electrical tape onto the white wire, that indicating that this is actually the hot side. I'll undo those neutrals and take out that old black pigtail, which was confusing. Now I'll clean up these wires a bit. I will strip off some new copper and try to straighten those out. Then I'll bring a new pigtail and I'll use my linesman's pliers with that pigtail and the two neutrals to rotate clockwise and twist those together, and then put on a new wire nut, making sure everything is secure. Now I want to make sure the grounds are all tied together from the Romex, ground the box as well, since this is a metal box. So I'll add an additional ground pigtail and secure it to a screw that's connected to the box. And then I'll tie that in with a new wire nut into the pre-twisted grounds from all the Romex lines. And that brings us to the second tip. And that is when you're trying to mount your bracket to your electrical box, which is going to be the adapter basically that's going to hold the light to the electrical box and also provide you can see the grounding screw here for the light. Depending on the location of your electrical box, mine is actually offset 1/2 of an inch from the surface of the plaster ceiling. Usually you want that more of a flush mount, but in many instances it is not. So if you have a similar situation, the 5/8 of an inch screw that comes with the kit is not going to do it for you. You're going to need to pick up some 8-32 machine screws, and that is with a pan head. So here is an example of a 2-inch long one. I have 1.5 inch and 2 inches always with me because those are the standard size for these electrical boxes, and it usually does come in really handy. If you don't know what I'm talking about, not a big deal. Look down in the description. I'll show you some links to the exact screws that you need to get. The only other thing I'll add is I'm going to tighten this where the bracket is flush with the ceiling, opposed to tightening it all the way down to the electrical box. Put the bracket in place, now we'll wire the light. I'll start off with the grounding wire and rotate that clockwise around that screw and tighten the screw to the bracket. Now I'll go onto the hot side, connecting the black wire with the white wire with the black electrical tape. Remember, in this scenario, that is the hot side. Now I'll just trim off that neutral pigtail we did earlier and connect it to the white wire from the light. Now I only have to tuck those wires up a little bit because there's a lot of space in the actual light housing itself. I'll put the washer on and then that cap, but it is a little loose. So this does show you an example of sometimes you'll need to adjust how much of that thread is coming out of the bracket. So I'll loosen that up because there's a lock washer on there. I'll thread it in just a bit, tighten it back up, and then I'll mount the light. Put the washer back on, cap back on, tighten it up, and now it's flush to the ceiling with no gaps. So the new ceiling light is installed and I will test it out here. And it looks like everything is good to go with a much more updated look. Now, a few things to note. Some people are intimidated by electrical work, and one part of that is just wire nuts and not being comfortable with wire nuts. But there are non-twist solutions, especially when you're working with solid core wire, especially when you're dealing with wire that is solid core and then the braided strands that come through on light fixtures such as this. You can look up options such as what's called a Wago 221 lever nut. 221 is just the model number from Wago. So what this is, I'll take the solid core wire and place it in and then just close that lever. You can then see that the wire is fully seated within the housing because it's transparent, and also it passes the pull test. Now you can also take a braided strand and similarly pass it through to the end of travel, hit the lever, and now this is equivalent to your wire nut. So if this is something that you might be more comfortable with, I do recommend getting some and just trying them out. And again, reference down in the description, I'll give you a link to the Wago 221 series lever nut. There's also push pins, there's other options out there, but I really do like these Wago lever nuts, and I'll go into more detail on those in future videos. Additionally, for you to get the most value out of this video, I get a ton of great comments from the viewers. Sometimes I miss things. Sometimes I do things incorrectly. So you can look down in the comments and I will pin a comment. And as the comments come in and maybe common messages or common callouts of where something went wrong, I will correct that within that pinned comment. So I'll make any additional notes that you should be taking into account on your project within that pinned comment. Then with the video instruction and the additional points within the comment, you know you're ready to go on your project. But if you have additional questions, don't forget to jump down in those comments. Let me know. I'll be in there and try to help as many people out as possible. Before you take off, also don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, as we have multiple videos coming out per week to help you with repairs and improvements around the house. And we'll catch you on the next one. Take care.